What's up, my allies? My name is Zacharias, and this is Thank You Universe, and I hope you're all doing well today. But has your shadow been haunting you? Have those ghosts from your past and those emotional wounds been coming up lately? Yep, same here. So today we're going to be talking all about shadow work. We're going to be explaining what it is and also talking about the collective shadow cycle that we're going through right now on this planet, because this is something that is happening to the collective. Individuals face their own shadows and do their own shadow work at certain times, but collectively, in the collective of all of our experience, that is the main theme right now, is this shadow work. Things are coming to light. So essentially what shadow work is making the unconscious conscious. Now, this idea of the shadow originated in Western psychology from the psychologist Carl Jung, Freud's star pupil. But Carl Jung, his idea was that we have our consciousness and our unconsciousness. I'm super simplifying it, but this is just the basic idea. And so we have our conscious experience, all the things that we recognize, that is our ego, who we are, who we think we are, and then we have everything else. So everything we are not conscious of is the shadow. And I'm sure that there are many mystical traditions and spiritual traditions that have the same concept that predate Western psychology. In fact, I know that there are. And this idea of shadow work is a time-honored tradition of magical practice. And this idea of shadow work is something very inherent to spiritual practice, magical practice, self-improvement, is making these things that we struggle with, these aspects of ourself that we have not been able to become conscious of and integrate them. So doing shadow work and integrating your shadow is essentially becoming conscious of those things that you are not conscious of. Those things about yourself that you don't recognize about yourself, or you don't admit to yourself on a conscious level, that you push to the unconscious because you don't want to think about it, because personal development and self-work is hard to do, and working through traumas and pains is uncomfortable, and sometimes it's too much and we push it back into the deep recesses of the shadow of our mind. But we're all here to improve and get better and become amazing and magical manifestors, right? So we want to do our shadow work and actually look at ourselves and integrate our shadow. Shadow work is an essential way to improve yourself and to become conscious of who you are. So the thing is, everyone has a shadow, everyone has flaws, everyone has character traits that they deem as less desirable, whether or not you admit it to yourself. So once we become conscious of our shadow side and own up to those parts of ourselves that we ourselves deem as undesirable, that's why we push them away and push them into the back of our mind, then we can work on them. There are a lot of people who want to pretend like their shit doesn't stink and that they're perfect and every problem they ever have is someone else's fault, and it's not because of who they are as a person or their own actions. But the truth is, you are responsible for your entire life, and you do have this shadow side, and you can act in ways that go against what you tell yourself is your ideal way of living and being as a person. But that's okay. You don't have to hide from it. You don't have to judge yourself for having imperfections. Nobody is perfect. We all have a shadow side, and we all have things that we need to work on. To do shadow work, I've got some tips. First off, do not judge yourself, do not beat yourself up, do not tell yourself you're bad. First, you have to accept yourself 100%, and this is a process. So to begin the process, I would say, first, learn to stop judging yourself and to stop thinking of certain things that you do as bad. Because when we judge certain aspects of ourselves as bad, like we're not supposed to be this way, that's why we shove them to our subconscious. Like maybe growing up, you were really like a wild and rambunctious child and you were just this ball of energy running all over the place, and then your parents got annoyed and they're like, no, that's bad, you're a bad kid, don't be like that. And so you push that part of yourself down and you become this very structured and rigid person that always tries to do the things that other people will approve of and not be a crazy animal wild child. So it is a process of bringing light to the shadow, to bringing consciousness to the unconsciousness, and recognizing those parts of ourselves that growing up or throughout our life at any point we have learned to suppress because we think that they are bad morally. We have been made to feel bad for ways of being. So you have to stop feeling bad about it and say, you know what, I'm not perfect. I can even be a real asshole in some ways. But that's okay. I love and accept myself anyways, and I'm going to admit it and own it and be conscious of it. And if I make a mistake, or if I'm a jerk, or I do any number of things that is less than ideal, I accept it and I'm going to work on it, and I'm not going to beat myself up for it. And I'm definitely not going to shove it further into my unconscious and pretend like it didn't happen and like there is no problem. So when you're doing shadow work, one of your biggest tools and your biggest clues to those things that are part of your shadow is to look at your own pain. If you experience pain, emotional pain, if you have anxiety, if something is bothering you, you want to ask, why does that hurt me? Why do I feel this pain? Why do I want to get away from it? Why does it hurt? And you take those feelings that you have and you allow them. You sit with them. So if you have something, maybe a deep trauma that you want to work through, this can be difficult, but this is part of the integration of your shadow. You want to really sit with it and meditate on it and think on it and say, why does this hurt me? Why am I running from this? And why have I tried to keep this in my unconscious? It's very painful, and maybe you kept it in the unconscious because you didn't want to experience that pain, because you thought it would overwhelm you and destroy you. Mentally, you felt like that could happen. But allow yourself to accept whatever you have been through and accept this pain and recognize it as a lesson that you have learned, as a challenge that can make you grow. A lot of these challenges can be very severe and very hard to deal with, but you can overcome them and you can integrate that shadow and become a more conscious being and live the life that you consciously choose, rather than being reactionary and at the whims of hiding from your fears and hiding from your shadow. Again, anything that bothers you, anything that brings you emotional pain, just allow yourself to experience it and ask yourself why. And that is the process of integrating these feelings, emotional traumas, emotional woundings, and integrating your shadow by allowing it to be. Don't force it into the shadows. Bring the light of your consciousness to it. You're not a bad person. Whatever happened to you in the past, whatever you have done in the past, whatever you have experienced, you are not bad. Even if that has made you bitter or made you afraid or made you act in ways that you think that you shouldn't act, you are not bad. You're just a conscious being having an experience, and you can integrate your shadow. I know you can, because you're so fucking beautiful, okay? And we're all going through this collective shadow work right now on the planet. In the past few years, people have been going through an accelerated level of shadow work over time, and it's just been getting faster and faster. And now with this whole pandemic situation and the world shutting down, a lot of people are in their homes and they have a lot more time to think, and they're out of their daily distraction cycle of going to work and going to school and then consuming media, because we do live in a culture that has been distracting us from our own selves, from our own lives, and from the way that we have been living collectively on this planet. And so a lot of people are being confronted with their shadow because they have time to think about it as they are alone in their homes or not going about the regular schedule. And this is a time for collective shadow work as well, and thinking about the way that the world has been run, or rather humans have been running our society on the world, because we don't run the world. The world's got that covered. But it's a way to look at the way that we have been treating each other, treating the environment, treating animals, other species. It hasn't been pretty. It really hasn't, let's be real. And right now isn't it time that we're all collectively facing our own individual shadows as well as the collective shadow of society. And a lot of people are waking up to some not so pleasant aspects of society, government, culture that they have been living under and not really thinking about because they've been unconscious, they've been in the shadow. A lot of people have just accepted the world they are born into without thinking about it and without questioning it. But now we're questioning it and we're doing this shadow work, and it's awesome. And I know a lot of people are really scared right now and it seems like doom and gloom is going on. But this is an awesome opportunity, because the deeper you go into the shadows, the brighter the lights get. The more that you integrate your shadow and become conscious and do that emotional work, the more healing that comes, and the more you become the person you want to be, and the more we can become the humans, the society, the culture on this planet that we want to be. One that is sustainable and healthy, and where all people are cared for and their needs are met, as opposed to the current world where it's just been Darwinian survival of the fittest, social Darwinism. Everyone takes care of themselves and, fight for the scraps. That's not what we want to do on this planet. We're here to have an experience where we can all feel fulfilled and enriched living our lives. But shadow work is essential to improving yourself and becoming conscious of those things that you try to hide from yourself and integrating them. You have to recognize your own potential for malevolence, your own potential for evil. Because you have to admit to yourself that yes, you could do those things. People that you consider bad people, or people that you see doing things that you think are immoral, you also have that potential to be bad, to do those things. And bad is in air quotes because nothing is really good or bad, it's all an experience. But you have to recognize your own potential to do those same things that you might consider bad, and still choose consciously to do what you see best. Recognize that you might have a monster inside of you, this shadow side, and that you have the potential to act in ways that are really unsavory, ways that are really not ideal. But admitting to it is one way to not actually become your shadow, because if you suppress your shadow enough, it will pop out in all sorts of ways. That's why seemingly calm people just all of a sudden will snap on somebody and burst. It's because you can only suppress your shadow so much before it comes out. And it will come out. Your shadow will come out if you don't pay attention to it. Or you might just be living in ignorance of who you are. There are some people who you see that generally are seen by others as kind of selfish, mean people. They're not liked well because they don't treat people well, but they themselves don't recognize it. And so you don't want to be living in ignorance of who you are, of the ways that you are not your ideal version. Shadow work is the process of becoming conscious of all of your flaws and accepting them and loving them and saying, there you go, you little monster inside of me. I know you're kind of crazy and psychotic, but that's okay. We don't have to do those things that you want to do. We can actually have this conversation with ourselves and integrate these different aspects of ourselves. So I wish I could give you a step-by-step guide on how to do shadow work and how to integrate your shadow and overcome certain emotional woundings and things that you have put into your subconscious, but there is no step-by-step guide for doing this. I can only tell you that you're going to have to be really open and honest with yourself and ask yourself why you feel negative about the things that you do and why you behave in the ways that you behave, and just own it and admit it, and don't judge yourself for it, but just allow yourself to examine it and come to terms with it, because it's very personal to each of us, and we have to do that work on ourselves and integrate our own shadow, because that's our task to do. No one else is going to do it. No one else could possibly do it. You have to be willing to look at your shadow yourself. Look in the mirror in the middle of the night and see the boogeyman, and then make friends with him. So don't be afraid. Fear not. We are all going through this collectively. Our shadow is coming up. The shadow of humanity and our individual shadows. And you can do it. Just be really honest with yourself. And if you commit to actually doing this work and being open and examining yourself, then you will have so much growth and you will benefit so much from bringing light to your shadows and bringing consciousness to your unconscious. And that way you can really truly be the person that you want to be, because you are conscious of all aspects of yourself and you can choose who you want to be. You've got this, and you are beautiful, so you don't have to be afraid of the collective shadow or your own personal shadow. So, I hope that you found this video helpful. If you liked it, go ahead and give it a like. Please subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. Also, you can donate to my Patreon. The link is down below in the video description. It helps me to thrive and to keep on making these awesome videos. So if you want to do that, it would help out a lot. With all that said, much love to all my allies out there, and I'll be seeing all of you on the next video. Bye!